Story 1. So, I'm an unlucky person, right? I've been through some difficult times. I used to have migraines and I thought this really sucked. I once bit into a carrot and it pushed a tooth into a nerve, and the nerve was just painful for a month until it got infected and then died. And that was pretty bad. I had an intrauterine device inserted and removed. I had an ovarian cyst rupture. I had glass shatter into my hand and needed to have it removed. I had an upper palate expansion surgery. I had a thyroidectomy. Let me tell you, it all pales in comparison to what I'm about to tell you. So, a few years ago, I got a migraine and it didn't stop. It just kept getting worse and worse. So my doctors decided to do a lumbar puncture. The lumbar puncture didn't clot. All the cerebrospinal fluid in my body leaked out into my abdomen. My brain didn't have its cushion. It was warped out of shape in my skull. And I could feel it like 10,000 knives shredding my mind apart. If I tried to stand, my legs just gave out from the overwhelming agony. The hospital told me I needed to wait 5 days before they'd do the surgery to fix it. They wanted to see if my body would heal on its own. I spent 5 days in hell. I forgot to eat. I couldn't move. I couldn't function. I just existed in agony, trying not to move an inch because the pain would swell again. Eventually, I got the surgery, which, well, I could feel them stabbing needles into my spine and flooding the space between my vertebrae with blood, ballooning the vertebrae apart, sending jolts of electricity to my feet. But then, the original illness they were testing for was too much cerebrospinal fluid crushing my brain. It took about 4 hours for that to come back. It also took 2 years for doctors to deal with the fact that I had a collapsed cerebrospinal fluid vein. All the cerebrospinal fluid backed up, crushing my brain, optic nerves, and spinal cord. I was basically catatonic in agony for 2 years. In bed, just out of it. Worse than a migraine, because that's a thing. Story 2. Gout and passing kidney stones. The latter is sometimes described as the closest a man can get to the pain of childbirth. I'm sure childbirth can hurt more. The good thing about kidney stones, at least for me, was how quickly I was given heavy-duty pain relief. No arguing, no bleeding. Just one look at me and the nurse was like, "Can we get some morphine over here?" Story 3. Chronic pain. People will treat chronic pain sufferers like whiny children, but when they have had the same headache for 3 days, they are incapacitated. No, Karen, get out in the sun like the rest of us have to be. Story 4. Grief. You think that you can handle it, and most days you do. But the soul-crushing experience of losing someone close to you is not something you can understand until you've gone through it yourself. The emotional pain is incredible. Story 5. The loss of a pregnancy. Making the decision to abort late term when you find out your child has an incurable defect that they will not survive. No, I am not interested in a debate. Jesus and I are all good. Work on your own grace and salvation and do not worry about mine. Story 6. Kidney stones actually made me want someone to kill me. I've birthed 3 kids. Not great experiences. Gallbladder stone attack and later removal. Teeth issues. But kidney stones were the worst, and I don't think the pain can truly be described accurately. Story 7. Slipped disc. When people say, "Oh yeah, I've had a bad back," it's not the same. Once you have a disc issue, it can affect you for the rest of your life. Numb legs, sciatica, spasms, and millions of painkillers that damage your liver and kidneys. Look after your backs, people. Story 8. Domestic violence. It causes complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which medical professionals will tell you is common in law enforcement, firemen, war veterans, and domestic violence survivors. That's if you survive. I'm so sorry that so many of you resonate with this. It's absolutely life-destroying. Story 9. Psychological pain, alienation, bullying, exclusion. In ancient Rome, being excluded from a community was considered so damaging that anyone sentenced to death could choose to be exiled instead. Ancient Turkish proverb, "The axe forgets what the tree remembers." Story 10. Grief for pets. When one of my cats died last year, I realized just how difficult it really was. I cried for days and felt guilty for not being there to say goodbye. Story 11. It sounds silly, but all of it. This is an important subject in my work, the intersection of psychotherapy and manual therapy. And it amazes me how much people, including myself, find ourselves surprised at the extent of pain and its impact on our lives. As far as I can tell, if we haven't personally experienced something, then we have a tendency to minimize it. This is pretty broadly applicable. Cognitive bias runs deep in our species. If we see someone running late for the bus, we have the tendency to assume something negative about their character. But when we're running late, we're victims of circumstances despite trying our best. People's ideas about pain are at least that uncharitable. To be fair, we can't imagine a sensation for which we have no frame of reference. So when I was younger, I thought the old, "I've fallen and I can't get up" bit was comedy or exaggeration. Now I know, only someone who has experienced debilitating back pain can understand how it feels. Same with anything experiential. And I think that fact is hugely responsible for the prevalence of mental health stigma. If someone has never experienced depression, they simply aren't equipped to empathize. We can have compassion, we can be with people in pain, but I believe that we can't share the burden nor even really understand, no matter how much we might wish to. Story 12, Combat. There's nothing like video games or movies. It's gritty, gory, intense, and scary as hell. Also, people don't respawn. I say this as a multiple deployment veteran who was a medic. Story 13, Opioid Withdrawal. Nobody even tries to understand because we did it to ourselves and whatever else. But it's really harrowing stuff. Your entire body starts to malfunction. Every nerve in your body is screaming at you for a chemical it is not getting, which translates to full body bone and joint pain, nerve pain, and muscle pain. And that's just the pain. Then there's the massive gastrointestinal reaction, constant yawning and eyes watering, intense depression and anxiety, hot and cold flashes, and it's impossible to sleep for more than 1 to 2 hours for days. Yeah, I'm super. Withdrawal feels like being trapped in a nightmare realm. Story 14, Bladder pain. You have no idea until you experience it. It's not just pain, it's urgency. The urgency is warped into pain, like needles in your bladder. You can never be comfortable. Lying down, the pain increases until you have to go pee. But peeing doesn't make it stop, just relieves it by about 1 point for about 5 minutes. You lie sobbing on the floor of the shower, just peeing on yourself because you're so exhausted. This is what living with interstitial cystitis is like. The condition is underfunded, under-researched, and no one cares because it falls into women's health. The last Food and Drug Administration approved medication is from the 1990s. I won't live to 50 because I will take my life before then. Also consider that 85% of medications cause flare-ups. We cannot take life-saving medications or else face pain like acid in our bladder. I will choose death over that. If I get cancer, I am as good as dead. Story 15. I currently have spinal stenosis. It means that my legs don't work and are all tingly due to my nerves overfiring, resulting in hypersensitivity to the point that putting socks on is excruciating. I struggle to walk and tire easily. My back feels like it was hit with a cannonball, not unlike kidney stones, and on top of it, I have no sense of balance. Story 16. I have Crohn's disease, and I don't think anyone can fathom the constant pain because on the outside I look completely fine. However, my joints hurt from the inflammation, my stomach is always sore, my bowels cramp, and bloating is a huge issue. One day my shoulder and wrist hurt, next day it's my back, hips, and a knee, and then the next maybe I only have some stomach pain. I couldn't even hug my own children because it felt like my skin hurt. Story 17. Getting older. As things in your body start breaking down naturally, particularly joints, it just hurts. Muscle tissue also decreases and heals slower, and muscles get stiff much more easily and quickly. Cat Williams does a good bit on this, how he thought his grandfather was just lazy until it started hitting him. Story 18. The loss of my soulmate. We were together for 10 years, and he died suddenly in 2022. This pain is crippling, and it never gets better. It's way worse than any physical pain I've ever felt. I'd take 1,000 broken bones just to have him back. Story 19. This sounds ridiculous, but I had really bad constipation. It was one of the worst stomach pains I've ever experienced. I thought it was appendicitis and had to go to the emergency room for it. Story 20, Mental Suffering. We all naturally fear physical pain. It's built into our basic instincts, so we know that type hurts, no question. We know that from birth. But the complexities of mental or psychological pain, that lasts a lot longer and, a lot of the time, a lot harder. Story 21, Hip Pain. Severe osteoarthritis in both hips from a fairly young age. So bad now in my mid-40s I have trouble walking. Going upstairs, bending, or squatting is nearly impossible. Often in so much pain that I cannot find a comfortable position for sitting or lying down either. Story 22. Not pain, but suffering is diabetic ketoacidosis. I was in the emergency room for about 4 to 5 days. I couldn't keep my head straight, urinating like crazy, and my body just felt numb, cold, hot, and vibrating all at the same time. The worst part is the thirst. You feel extremely dehydrated, and your mouth feels drier than a desert. You become so desperate for liquid that if someone came to offer to urinate in your mouth, I'm 98% sure I would beg for it at that moment. Keep your diabetes in check, people. Story 23. I was a paramedic and would on average rate the worst I saw as number 3 severe endometriosis, number 2 back pain, number 1 gallstones. Fractures and back pain you can maneuver to get them reasonably comfortable, but for endometriosis and gallstones there was no comfortable position, and often the pain relief didn't even touch it. You could see the pain on their face with all color drained and like they've been 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. Story 24. A tonsillectomy as an adult. I've experienced ruptured ovarian cysts and dealt with endometriosis and adenomyosis for my entire adult life. Ended up having a hysterectomy at 41. I have never experienced pain quite like that of the scabs slowly coming away from the surgical site of my tonsils, though excruciating doesn't begin to describe it. I ended up back to the doctor and was prescribed liquid morphine, and even that didn't dull the pain. Story 25. Once my jeans caught on fire while camping. I managed to put them out in under 5 seconds, but my calf experienced a 4 by 4 inch second-degree burn. The initial burn was tough, but what was truly painful was the healing process afterwards for the next 1 to 2 months. Story 26. Healing from a skin graft, having to debride the area in question every day, is some of the worst pain I have ever felt. Fortunately, it was a very small area. I can't imagine what burn victims go through. Story 27. Everyday things hit a bit differently. Like a ton of bricks over and over again. That you're gone. Feels like the wind just got knocked out of me and my throat is gasping for air. But I'm not gasping. I'm just here with my throat seeking air to breathe. But I don't give it any. Not purposely, just paralyzed, waiting for something. Oh, there it is, the air. I hurry and wipe my tears before someone sees because I don't want to be comforted. I don't want to be hugged. I just want to wake up. Story 28. I've had kidney stones, big ones, 9 out of 10 pain. Intense migraines requiring hospitalization, 9 to 10 out of 10. Those are incredibly painful, intense experiences. But it's nothing compared to the life-draining, wanting to die, sustained, never-ending chronic pain I deal with daily. I was injured during training in the Marine Corps. Dislocated my left knee. A month later, I go in for surgery and, being the incompetent doctors they are, I end up with compartment syndrome in both legs from them not adjusting position for 10 hours. They cut open my left thigh and right calf on both sides of each and attach sponges connected to vacuum pumps. That pain was an 11 out of 10. Non-stop screaming and vomiting from the intensity. Eventually put into a medically induced coma. I would take all of those at once for a year compared to what I have now. I had my sciatic nerve severed in my left thigh from the surgeries. Lost most of my thigh from subsequent debridements and surgeries. I have severe neuropathy and chronic pain. I suffer every day, non-stop. I barely sleep, can't work, no more hobbies, no more friends, and I am barely managing as a stay-at-home dad. If it wasn't for my wife and kids, I definitely would have ended it years ago. The pain is about a 5 to 6 out of 10 at all times, 8 on my worst days. It just never stops. I've been like this since 2005. I have tried everything, even experimental, illegal, and spiritual methods. Nothing has really helped, besides epidurals I used to get twice a year. The Department of Veterans Affairs and private doctors will no longer perform those on me. The last one was nearly 6 years ago. I would do terrible things for a single day of relief. The only person who really knows how bad things have gotten is my therapist. My wife is an amazing woman, but I can't burden or scare her more than I already have. I just smile and tell her I am okay. She is so good to me. I don't want advice or platitudes. Sometimes it just helps my sanity to type or say it out loud. Story 29. The entire process of healing a bad burn, especially if it's in a sensitive place like your face or in a difficult spot to rest like your hand or elbow, is challenging. It is worse if it gets infected or if the scab gets ripped off.